Hello, I'm Karen Thomas and welcome to e-sgol's revision session. This is the first session out of 4. So I'm Karen Thomas. I have had various roles within education, from head of department, joint head of sixth form, a key stage leader, and a role working for e-sgol and the WJEC. I am also currently a history teacher and have been a history teacher for 24 years. And this time of year, often hear the words being uttered, Miss, how do you revise? So this PowerPoint been put together to help learners to learn what techniques are the best way for them to revise. So in the 4 revision sessions that I'm going to be doing, I'm going to be looking at some guidance, I'm going to be looking at revision techniques, I'm going to be looking at practical ideas that you can go away and try out, and also giving you some top tips to revise. Because at the end of the day, successful revision equals exam success. And that's what we want for each and every one of our learners. So in today's session, the first of 4, I'm going to be looking at, first of all, the importance of mock exams. Then I'm going to move on and look at theories about revision, repetition and revisiting practices. I'm going to be looking at the importance of doing active and short revision sessions, using suitable resources to revise, ensuring that our revision is going to be what we call flat and what that means. And I'm going to be focusing on 2 retrieval practices, which are Cornell notes and flashcards. So don't worry if there's anything there that you don't understand. By the end of the session, you will understand what they all mean. So, first of all, why are mock exams good for you? You might be thinking, having just done some, or you may have some coming up, what's the point in this? But it is really, really important. It helps to get you used to exam pressures. It allows you to practice exam techniques. It gives you experience of sitting in the hall or the room that you're going to be doing your real exams in the summer. So you get used to having that experience of exam conditions. It's also the perfect opportunity to ask for help if there's anything that you don't understand. It can test your revision strategies that you might have been using to see what works and what doesn't. And it also helps you to identify topics that you might need to do a little bit more revision in. But the main thing is it exercises your brain and it helps to build exam stamina, which is really, really important in the run-up to your exams in the summer. So if we start first of all and look at some theories about revision. So if you can imagine your brain is just like a field of flowers. And all the flowers that are in your brain are actually memories and facts and skills, and they're all dotted about. You have learned things, they're in your memory, but they are dotted in all different areas. Now, the more times that you go into your brain and you revisit these memories or facts or skills, then the stronger the pattern becomes to retrieving them and pulling them forward. Say, for example, skills that you might need for an exam. So the more that you go into your brain and use them, the better the links between these skills are. So the more you use them, the easier it is to recall and use. So when you learn something, a group of neurons in the brain activates in what we call the hippocampus. And it's a bit like light bulbs turning on off, like the flowers in the fields that I've just shown you. So these pathways to and from the neurons or the flowers in the field can be strengthened over time through simple repetition, which means repeating something. You will be able to retrieve and recall and get a memory over and over again. And that is the best way of consolidating this pattern. It's by repetition. So if you consistently practice and revisit things that have gone into your brain, then that's going to strengthen your memory and it will boost your learning. If you're not revisiting things that have already gone into your brain, then they tend to get lost, and over time they eventually disappear. And our working memory is very limited. So if we overload this area or cram for revision at the last minute, it really doesn't work. So it's important to be able to put facts and information in and be able to retrieve them over time. So those memories get stronger and stronger and stronger. Now, with your revision, it's really important to be active. Lots of students like to read, to revise, but that is not revision. Okay, the more active you can be in getting the revision material in and out of your brain, the better. Is revision exciting and enjoyable? Well, not really, no. Revision is never really exciting, but it is doable and you can make it vaguely interesting and fun. And I'm hoping to show you some techniques which will mean that you look forward to doing some revision. Now, you need to be, as I said, as active as possible. If you are sociable, you might want to work with friends. You might want to draw pictures if you're artistic and like drawing, using colors if you're a visual type of learner, anything really, crazy ideas or images if you're imaginative, and also be able to give yourself rewards for successful revision. Now, I often get asked as well, when should I revise? When's the best time to revise? Now, basically, in order to revise effectively, you have to think hard. And thinking hard is very, very tiring. So when you do revise, you need to choose a time when you find it the easiest to focus. And it should be a time when you're well rested and when you are used to working. Personally, for me, that's in the morning. I always find that I'm more switched on. I'm ready to take in information in the morning. In the evening, I tend to be a little bit more tired and I lose my focus a lot easier. Other people prefer evening revision. It is entirely up to you. But if we have a quick look at these two little graphs here, it shows how your focus can drop if you are tired when you do your revision. Okay, so it drops off really, really quickly. If you are revising when you're well rested, your focus stays a lot stronger over a longer amount of time. So that's the first thing. Make sure you are ready to revise and you are well rested to do so. The other thing that I'll be going back to at various points in this PowerPoint is that you should take regular breaks when you revise. Now, these breaks can be structured. It's called a method called the Pomodoro technique. And if you revise without having a break, as time goes on, you start to lose your focus. But if you have small regular breaks within your revision, then your focus stays quite high. So it is much more beneficial for you and more effective for you to learn and have breaks in between little revision sessions. So this is another way of looking at it. If you think about going into a revision session, as you start, you're remembering lots and lots. And session A there, you can see the person starting to revise, but then we've got a big red line where there's things that's not remembered in the middle of their revision session. When they come out to their revision session, they start to remember stuff again because it's right at the end. They're looking forward to having their break or leaving their revision, and that is when they're going to remember things. Now, if that student actually took a break in between and did more of an active revisions 2 sessions, it means they are in that section of remembering things a lot more, and that is more beneficial. It's more efficient to revise. So going into session B, a person is going to be remembering things. The session happens. When they come out to have that little rest, they're remembering a lot more. Going back in, they're remembering. When they come back out, they're remembering. So taking a rest and a break in your revision is really, really good practice. The other thing that's really important is that when you do start to revise, you've got to make sure that you remove all barriers for effective revision. So you've got everything that you basically need. So make sure you've got your subject books ready. You've got maybe a syllabus or exam papers that you want to look at. Maybe you've got some mark scheme for certain subjects, maybe textbooks, possibly examiners' reports, and make sure that you have the resources as well that you're going to need. So perhaps coloured pens, paper, post-it notes, some card, whatever you think you're going to need, make sure you have it to hand. And then you're going to make sure that your revision is flat. So that means it needs to be focused, it needs to be long-term, it needs to be active, and it needs to be transformed. So first of all, you need to be focused. So the first thing you need to do is to put your phone away. You do need to time yourself because we reckon a good revision session is about 25 to 30 minutes long, and then a little break, 5-minute break, and then back into another session. So your phone might be needed to time, but apart from that, you shouldn't be distracted with anything else on your phone. Knock the internet off it if you have to. Turn music off. Some people like to revise with music. Personally, I don't, because in your exam, you've got to think you will be in silence. You need to get used to working in silence. Avoid distractions. Be in the right physical place to revise, so not lying on your bed when you're half falling asleep. Try and get a table or a desk to work on, and be in the right frame of mind to do a productive revision session. The other thing is to make it long term. So start as early as possible with your revision, okay? As soon as you can in the year, start from now. Make a revision timetable and commit to it, and also interleave different topics into your revision. Now, what that means is don't just do one subject per night. Work on a couple of different subjects or a couple of topics within different subjects. That is much better and more effective revision than working on the same thing for a few hours. Make sure your revision is active as well. So engage your brain by actively creating revision resources, and then test yourself. The flowers in the field that we looked at right at the very beginning, remember you need to go into your brain and pull out this information to make those pathways stronger and stronger and stronger, to get that information when you are actually in an exam. So practice exam techniques, answer questions, plan answers, and put things together yourselves. And revise what you struggle with. I'll come back to this point a bit later as well. But you should be looking at the subjects that you find difficult just as much as the ones you enjoy. And finally, transform the knowledge that you want to learn into a different format. I said previously, there's no point just reading. You need to be able to turn that information into a different form. So making flashcards is really, really good example of that. Perhaps producing a timeline, recording a podcast, inventing a mnemonic, taking down some Cornell notes, creating mind maps, designing a flow chart, making a PowerPoint, teaching that information to somebody or telling them about it. They are all really good ideas to transform your revision. And it's important to cut it down. And by using some of these techniques, that's exactly what you're doing. You're cutting down the main information to main points. And that is much more manageable to get these main points into your brain and to remember them. Now, as a learner, there are different styles of revision techniques that suit different people. So if you are a visual learner, you might like to draw pictures and have diagrams. You might like to use highlighters or watch videos, use the internet. You might like to use a lot of post-it notes, and you like to tend to read and reread things. If you're an auditory learner, things like repeating things out loud is something that you would like to do with your revision. Maybe you remember facts by setting them to some music. You record notes on your phone and listen to them back. You close your eyes, or you tend to close your eyes to help you to concentrate. And if you're a kinesthetic learner, you prefer to do things. So you may be walking about when you're studying. You might be underlining and highlighting things regularly, using mind maps. You like to touch and handle more objects in your revision, and you like to revise in different places. Now, you don't have to stick to that particular list if you are that type of learner. Obviously, you can mix and match. They're all different ideas, but it's just examples of how different people prefer to do different things as a learner when it comes to revision. So to retrieve this information, it means you need to get out of your brain what you have learned. It is not simply rereading something, okay? So knowledge quizzing and low stakes testing is really, really good way of retrieving, of a retrieval practice and getting that information out of your brain. Having multiple choice tests is a brilliant way of starting your revision, because you know that one of those answers is going to be the correct one, and you're starting to build and condense your knowledge in that area through doing those multiple choice tests to begin with. Maybe completing past papers or practice answers. That is quite useful as well. Obviously, your teachers will have lots of past paper questions they'll be able to give you. They might even be willing to mark extra stuff. I'm sure they would be, because I know that I do a lot of extra marking when it comes closer to exams. So if you have got past papers, use them. If you can use the websites of the exam boards, they will have all the past papers for the past few years on there that you can download, as well as practice answers that you can look at. The other thing is answering questions verbally, asked by teachers, peers, or parents. That is a good retrieval practice. And also creating flashcards. I'm going to do more work on flashcards further on in this session. But anything really, any kind of revision material where you can test yourself is really, really useful. Now, the first thing I want to focus on really as a technique and spend some time on today is something called Cornell notes. Now, to make Cornell notes, you just need a sheet of A4 and you need to use your margin, or perhaps a little bit wider than your margin, and you would put down the side of your margin the main things, your cues that you were going to be condensing your notes about. So it could be some things that you've done in class, it could be some exam questions, it could be some keywords. They would go down the side, and then on the right hand side you would then add some extra information that corresponds with your cues. So it might be main points or bullet points, it might be some diagrams or charts, it might be paraphrasing things or some quotes, but you will fill that sheet with some extra bits of information that you know you need to learn. And then right to the very bottom is a little summary section. And in that summary section, you would then write an overview of what is on your sheet. Keep it brief, because what you can do as you build up your Cornell notes is use that summary to look at what's on the sheet. Yeah, I know that. I don't need to look at that one at this moment in time. Or you're reading it and thinking, oh, I'd forgotten about that bit. Right, let's go into the notes bit and have a little look at what I need to learn here. So these are really, really good, tried and tested methods of condensing your notes, cutting down what you've got in your books. So this is an example that's been typed up. Of course, you can do it on laptops as well. So you've got here, it's an English one. What is the plot? Who are the main characters? What is the theme? What is the setting? And then you've got room to actually expand and put the main points in the notes section and the little summary points at the bottom to sum it all together. This is one that's actually been done by a learner. So this is one for English as well. So the definition of the plot, you've got the information running alongside. You've then got the themes, the characters, how it defines the settings, and it's all there on one sheet. So it's much more manageable to look at and to learn the information on there than, say, 6 pages that you might have written out in your English book, for example. And remember, it doesn't have to be just English notes for Cornell notes. You can use any subject that has notes, really, that you can condense down. So here we've got somebody started doing one for science, with the different planets and things, and then the main points for each planet going down the right-hand side. Here we've got one for biology, which is on the stomach, and this student has actually added some diagrams and also used colour as well. So the diagrams are labelled with the main points on them, and then each of the sections have got different colours, again, to help with revision. Colour is a really good thing if you're making notes to differentiate and change the different sections that you're working on. So again, it helps to stick into your brain. And this learner has actually gone a step further, and you can see at the bottom in the summary, they've actually done a little test for themselves where they've underlined keywords. They are written and underlined, some of them during the main points as well. But what this learner has done is gone back then as part of her revision and answered and filled in the missing words at the very bottom. So you can use these Cornell notes really quite deeply, do quite a few different revision techniques, but they're really, really useful. So another kind of retrieval practice that I want to speak with you today about is using flashcards. Now, flashcards are really effective to get revision in and out of your brains, and in each subject they can be used in different ways. So the important thing with a flashcard is making sure that the information is short and concise. So maybe a key term or keyword on the front of the card, and then its definition on the back. So we've got an example here, attrition. That's the action of rock fragments colliding into each other, causing them to become smaller and rounder over time. Could have a key date with history, for example, and then the actual event on the back, or a key equation, and for maths, and on the back, put it into practice with an actual answer. It could be a past paper question and maybe a model answer on the back. But the important thing is that you keep it really concise on flashcards. Now, you don't actually have to just do flashcards physically. There are a number of online sites now where you can use flashcards. They're free sites, and you can design your own online flashcards. You can upload your notes onto the cards. You can use cards that others have made to test yourself. And you can share flashcards that you've made with friends to test yourselves as well. Now, there are 2 main apps that do this. There's the Anki app and the Quizlet app. So these are 2 online flashcard apps that you can use to test your understanding. Now, as I said, with flashcards, keep the information concise. Only have one term or one definition on there. Don't force your brain to remember really complex and wordy answers. It's really difficult to be able to do that. And it's much easier for your brain to process simple information. So if you do have a long answer, for example, make sure you split it into smaller cards and have a few cards, okay, into simple cards and have a few of them rather than try and cram everything onto one flashcard. You will end up with more flashcards, but your learning will be a lot more effective. Now, you can take this a step further by splitting a box into 5 different compartments and labelling them 1 to 5. And you can put all your flashcards into compartment 1. And then what you would do is test yourself. And if you got the answer right, you would put it into the next compartment, into compartment 2. And once they were in compartment 2, you would then revisit them every couple of days. If you didn't get the answer right, you keep that card in compartment 1 and you will keep on looking at it daily until you get that answer right and can move it into compartment 2. And then what you would do is continue to test yourself. And each time you correctly recall the information, you move the flashcard back into the next compartment. So everything in compartment 1, you should be looking at daily. In compartment 2, every other day, compartment 3, every third day, and so on and so forth. By the end, you will have all your flashcards into compartment 5, and the information is then stored in your long-term memory. Now, it's important that you don't just leave it and think, yes, it's in my long-term memory, I don't need to do anything with it. It is really important that you revisit your cards and you make sure that you are checking that your long-term memory and the information there can be retrieved and brought back out for when you need it in the exam. So really, really useful way of using your flashcards to another level. And of course, you can use any subject. You could have different compartments for different boxes for different subjects, or even different topics within certain subjects. So remember, when you use your flashcards, you are going to keep the information concise and short. So you identify the knowledge, what you're wanting to put on your flashcards. You can color code them or put little designs on them or little pictures if that helps. Design them, make them concise and clear. No extended answers on flashcards. And when you're using them, another important thing is as you're testing yourself, maybe write down your answer or verbalize your answer, because sometimes you can start thinking, oh yeah, I do know this one, but you haven't actually checked your understanding if you're doing it all silently. So if you can, write it down or verbalize it to someone. And the last thing is, obviously, as you're going through, you're going to have your own feedback because you will see the cards that you perhaps don't know so well and the ones that you do. So you can see what you need to focus on in future revision sessions. So as I said, the information there says avoid answering questions in your head. Research shows that when you read a question and answer it in your head, you're not always testing your knowledge effectively. So answer it out loud or write it down before you check it against the card. That will truly mean that you have understood the answer. So self-quizzing, flashcards, really, really good to use in that sense. So we've looked at a few retrieval practices in this session. So past papers, excellent way of testing your knowledge. To begin with, you might want to use past papers with your books, your subject books. As time goes on, you should be trying to do the past papers without using any kind of notes. Doing little practice tests. You could make your own tests up as well as test yourself. There are many, many things online that you can use to test your knowledge. Lots of quizzes, okay? You can do that in class. You could do it as part of your revision yourself at home, work with a partner on it. You could do multiple choice tests. They are really, really good when you are first starting your revision because you will know that one of the answers is going to be correct. Essay answers, really good for extended work. Answering a spoken question by verbalizing it or writing it down, making sure that you know the answer. Testing yourself on what was on your flashcards and using that system where you're putting them into the box and moving them back so that you're testing yourself again and again, but focusing on the bits that you need to make sure that you need to know that particular card a bit better. You know that they're in the front of this box and you need to get them back into that section 5 with the others. making up questions, answering them, and also having somebody ask you maybe 3 questions about a topic and be able to verbalize the answer back. So retrieval is one of the most effective ways to revise. So answering questions rather than just reading or highlighting information, you're putting yourself in the best position possible to succeed. And remember as much of your subject details as you possibly can. Past papers and essays and all those things really do help retrieval practices. They're a great way of learning how to revise. So in today's session, we have looked at the importance of doing mock exams. We've looked at different theories about revision, how repetition and revisiting is really, really good for retrieval practices of getting that information out. We've looked at the importance of active and short revision sessions. We've been looking at using different resources to revise. Looking at different retrieval practices. In particular, we've looked today at Cornell notes and at flashcards, and we've also made sure that our revision needs to be flat. And that, of course, it needs to be focused, it needs to be long-term, it needs to be active, and it needs to be transformed. So you need to be no distractions. You need to focus on the revision that you're doing. You need to start as early as possible. So from now, start your revision, do a couple of hours per week and build that up so that every night you're doing something small to do with revision. Make sure that your revision is active. You are actively getting information in and out of your brain, and that you're doing that by transforming your knowledge by using one of these retrieval practices. So we've done all of that in today's session. So have a go, pick a technique, see if it suits you and your style of revision. There might be something that you try for one subject and you try another different technique for a different subject, because obviously that could work as well. So have a go, see what suits your style of revision. Now, in our second session, we're going to be looking at the importance of spacing out and interleaving revision. We're going to be looking at lots of sticky ideas. That means ideas that will help you to keep knowledge in your brain. We're going to do a little bit of work on something called the Pomodoro technique, and we're going to look at how important organisation is, in particular looking at revision timetables and organising your work. So I hope you've had taken some ideas away from today's session and be able to put some of those into practice. And I hope you'd join us on the next session, which is session 2 out of 4. Thank you very much.